And so we will it just basically, as I said, it's a rearrangement of the number of days. And I think this graphic here on the, when you think of greater challenges, that, that all of those things that lead to greater academic challenges. And so what the research has shown, according to the JLARC study, is that certain groups of students perform better in a balanced calendar situation. And they show better scores on their SOL exam, tests. There's also a strong correlation that they found with teachers' perceptions of what they called year-round school calendars and improve student achievement. So, I say this because we're really trying to provide you with as much context as we can to the data we have, so that you all can make informed decisions about whether a balanced calendar is something that might be something that you feel is good, or something that is not good for Powhatan. They also have found that there was reduction in summer loss, obviously, by having those intersessions and being able to catch kids up throughout the school year, made it so that there wasn't that long summer slide that we know often happens in summers. And so it's so long that kids are out of school, and the kids that are out of school, again, oftentimes the ones that as educators we would like to see taking advantage of the summer school opportunities, they don't always show up for those opportunities, even when we target, they're targeted from the standpoint of we're having conversations with families saying this is something that would benefit your child academically and to be better prepared for the next year. But that there are differences between what happens in different homes in the summer that impacts this as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And so the other piece is that well-being piece, where we see more teachers, more families taking time out of the traditional school year for vacations, when they say they needed wellness days, or they also, we know that taking vacations off season makes it more affordable for people. And so there's some of the examples. Another one is that a benefit is that chronic absenteeism, which ties into the wellness, to me. And, if we can improve the wellness of our staff and of our families, then attendance both of staff and students would be better, which would benefit our students. Now, I told you we would have some things that we wanted you to kind of ponder on, and I'll read this out for those who might not be able to see it. If summer growth were the same for all students, summer could be ignored when comparing the status and progress of students by race, ethnicity, and/or income. However, there are large differences in what happens to student achievement during summer vacations, and changes in scores from year to year cannot be attributed entirely to what happens during the school year. That is, though, how schools are measured and evaluated. So another thing is the accountability testing systems, which measure change from one year to the next. Mixed learning that occurs in school with learning that occurs during the summer. So again, they're taking one test, but they're taking in that whole year, whether kids were being, took advantage of that summer learning opportunity or not. So that schools are held accountable for not only the achievement of their students while in school, but also the achievement of their students that accrues during the summer, over which they have no control. And we do know when that happens, different families have different opportunities. Some families may take their kids around places in the summer where they're having experiences, learning experiences, seeing other parts of the country, of the world, versus others that don't have those opportunities that impacts that summer slide. Now, looking at potential drawbacks, because we would be sharing those with you as well. Schools with year-round calendars face challenges recruiting and retaining experienced teachers. These challenges appear to be more severe in schools principally serving low-income and minority populations. I will say that I encourage you to look at the research. The research is referenced on each of the slides. Because you need to check for yourself so that you're not depending on me just telling you. I don't want it to be that Dr. Teigen was telling me how to think. No, I would like to give you, the place where you can go and do your own research, is that, a lot of where there has been balanced calendars used were targeted specifically because of the fact that those challenges existed. And I will tell you, I don't know if you know what's happened around the Central Virginia area, but Chesterfield was the first to go with a balanced calendar, and that was for one of their elementary schools that had a high poverty level. It was, I would say, in the upper 80s, could have been lower 90s by the time they did that. That had a high ESL population. And so, when you think about the schools, that's one school. Another school is Hopewell, and Hopewell went countywide. They went countywide or citywide. And, so eventually another school was added in Chesterfield, but there wasn't a feeder pattern either. It was just targeting the elementary students. In Hopewell, they did go, they're like us, about the same size, and they went countywide, citywide. I do know they're a city. And, but also there's high poverty, there's high, majority, minority school division. And so when you think about where the data's coming from, I think that the data doesn't necessarily reflect Powhatan, but this is the data that we have to share with you. Then another drawback could be childcare. People worry about what do they do about childcare. The students, a lot of times the older students are expected to be the ones like getting the younger ones off the bus. From that standpoint, the calendar, the school days are still, the assigned school days are still the assigned school days. And I will say that Ms. Jarman reached out to our larger childcare providers in Powhatan, and they did not feel that this was an issue for them. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
So when they reached out, sometimes the director was contacted, sometimes not. What was decided, they were going to come or listen to this. They have a Google form that is being sent to them after seeing the presentation of some concerns or questions that they might have after seeing the presentation. Initially, with the information and having an example of the calendar, there were initial thoughts of like, this could probably work for us, but we need more of the information from the presentation.
Thank you. Another drawback is cost. The initial implementation of the year-round school program may be costly due to a variety of factors, including facility and staff costs. We have worked on trying to estimate what that is from the standpoint of what would the intersessions cost. We currently do summer session, but what would intersession look like? We are not, I want to be clear that because some people are aware of Hopewell's program, they added 5 days to their teacher contracts and told them that they each had to work an a week of intercession. And that has, I guess it has worked for them. That is not the tactic that we are going to take. That was asked earlier by our teachers, and so I want other teachers that are hearing to know that. That, our intent is, just like we ask teachers that want to work extra time to teach summer school, they would be asked to work, if they want to work during intercession, to teach a week of intercession. The other drawback that has been seen, and again, considering where the locations have been in some of the other opportunities for a balanced calendar, the property values are slightly lower in areas zoned to year-round schools, likely reflecting families' willingness to pay more for housing to avoid a year-round calendar. So, what's next? Ms. Jarman will be presenting to the school board balanced calendar options for 26-27. She'll be also providing a traditional calendar for 26-27. Using those calendars, there'll be a survey for not only our parents and staff, community, and students. And then a recommendation would be made to the school board with giving them the survey results and a final decision on the 26-27 calendar. I really think it's important to know that we're doing all this because we want to hear from people, from everyone that's going to be impacted by this, needs to have the opportunity to know what we're talking about, know that we're talking about it, and be able to provide feedback to us. As I sit up here, both of us, I can tell you, we will still have a 245-day contract and have the same days off we currently have, and that's it. It doesn't impact us. We need to hear from the people that it's going to impact, whether it's a positive impact or whether it's not. So that's, and at this point, we're happy to open it up to questions that you all may have. And Laura, if you've got questions online. Oh, if people came in late to the, there is a live chat feature that has been turned on. And Mrs. McFarland will monitor that and be able to ask questions that come in through that live chat through the YouTube feed. I have a question. Can you come up to the podium so that they can be heard?
Already have data, but if you could present or share some data and knowledge that you have, how it does improve the students. Because our number one goal as a school board is for the students. It's for the children. So love our teachers too, of course. It's for teachers as well. And I've already spoken to a few who like the idea. And again, we're just gathering information because I also know in the community, everyone's some people are upset, some people are loving it and saying it's awesome. We're just researching all of this data and bringing this to the community, which is what we want for the school board and our superintendent. Have that transparency, have open discussion and dialogue. And so anyways, back to the original question. Can you share with us about student improvement data?
We will share the JLARC. We're going to do a Q&A based on the questions that are asked, and we'll put the link to the JLARC study in there so that people have that information, so it's easily accessible. It's on the bottom of all the slides as well, I believe. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you explain how this will impact sports?
Hopewell said that it did not have a negative impact because as a high school principal, I do know high school sports are year-round. Now, how it impacts outside sports, I would assume that what they do in sports now has an impact on, community leagues and so on. But that's a question that we'll look into, but I do, like I say, I do know also that our high school level varsity sports are year-round. They have a few weeks off a year. We know marching band loses half their summer now to get ready for football season. That's a big one. We know football starts, they can't have contests until after they've been in school X number of weeks. And it can't start till after August 1st. Those dates are set by VHSL. They are not set by any school division. And so all I can tell you is that it has not been a negative impact in Hopewell. They've managed to work through it without having hiccups. Now, whether we would or not, I don't know. But that's what I know about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I haven't decided for or against. I'm kind of middle of the road. But my question is, I see there was already a comment that teachers' opinions apparently didn't really count as much as parents. I'm not a teacher. I'm just going to say it. I'm not a teacher, but in all my years that I have been here and in the school district, I have an 11th grader. Our school district we had teachers flocking from other counties to come work in our school districts. I would say in the past 2 to 3 years, we have the complete opposite. We're having a hard time filling teachers' positions. I volunteer at the middle school. I've seen it, teachers have burnout. So how are we going to prevent teachers from, we can't afford any more teachers. We can't afford any more teachers. What kind of programs are you going to have in place for those that live outside of our county and who have kids, they're going to be a total opposite of their children's schedules? So do we have a plan in place for that?
Well, I can tell you some data that might help. I mean, it is, obviously, it is a consideration about hiring teachers. Currently, about 60% of our teachers live in Powhatan. I wish I could tell you the exact percentage that bring their children with them to Powhatan schools.
Now, do they also pay the tuition to bring their children here?
They do.
Because
But they
back in the day,
pay-
did they not have to?
They
I feel
pay
like
employee
yeah.
tuition, which is not, well, one, we don't,
I feel like all I hear lately in my volunteering and outside in organizations is the teachers are very unhappy. I hear a lot. They feel like there's more thrown on their plate and there's nothing coming back. I mean, they don't have their planning periods. And I think that's sad. And I don't think we can risk losing any more teachers at this point. That's just my opinion with this whole program. I think the teachers need to be polled, and I think their opinion should be just as high as parents' opinions.
their data will be
Yeah.
pulled out separate. I mean, everyone's data by
Right.
subgroup will be able to know whether it was a community member, whether it was a teacher, whether it was a parent.
Okay.
And so that will be disaggregated.
Yeah.
The data will be disaggregated in that manner so that the
Right.
board has a clear
Okay. I
knowledge
appreciate that.
of.
It's just that one
Yeah.
comment where, oh, well, the teachers,
And
really, I don't think we can, I swear, I'm so sad to see the condition of our school district currently because, I mean, the teachers loved it. When my oldest was in elementary, even middle school, it was great. I feel like, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but the middle school has dropped tremendously in, 6 years? When my oldest was in there when I started, it was great. And then I feel like it's just deteriorated. And I feel like the morale is so bad. It's so bad.
Well, I can share anecdotally that
Yeah.
we have a number of teachers that have gone to other school divisions only to come back.
Okay.
So-
I know there's quite a few who left. the shift already,
Sometimes
so,
the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It can look greener,
Yeah,
but there might be alligators in it. So, I
I
mean.
agree.
And I
That's
think
my
it's really,
concern.
and I think it's really hard for teachers right now. And that's why, to me, one of the biggest benefits of a balanced calendar is those breaks to allow for wellness. Because I think that is where we're seeing why it's hard, because teachers need a break, they take a break, we may or may not have a substitute. That puts stress on the teachers who are showing up to work every day. Kids aren't coming to school because they don't want to be there when a teacher's not there. If they love their teacher, they're coming every day, but if the teacher's not going to be there, and so I think we're in this cycle of, that it's how do we change the cycle from what we're in to where we want to be. And I don't know that this is the right answer. I mean, I wouldn't even be considering it if I didn't think it had merit. But again, I'm going to work my 245 days a year. And so it's not my decision to make. It is the larger community, and that includes our staff, our families,
That's what- and
community
that was my thing,
members.
is I want the teachers to have a say, because I don't think we can afford to lose it.
The teachers always have a say. So please know that they always have a say, and we always collect data so that the board knows when it's teacher versus parent.
Good evening. Thank you
Good
for being
evening.
here. I think for me to ask questions and formulate some questions around this, I need to understand what we're talking about. I heard you say 5 weeks in the summer, but what are the other sections looking like? So that was one of the-
Each one's a quarter, so it'll be 45 days and then 2 weeks off.
Okay.
So 10 days off. 45 days on, 10 days off.
And then 5 weeks in the summer was the,
It's 6 weeks in the summer, but for teachers go back for teacher work week a week before
Right.
the kids come. And so for teachers, it's a 5-week summer.
and is it looking at keeping that August date where it is, the start date? Or what would happen in terms of starting and ending?
I don't know that we
Not that
have
far.
examples of where that would be. Normally, they start more towards mid to late July
Okay.
and run that way. So that, because ideally, you would like, it's kind of working backwards, you would like to be able to figure out winter break and where that is, and where those where the natural breaks are. And so, that puts it, I would say, mid-July.
Oh, okay. I'll grab that. Okay, okay. Thanks.
So I actually have a couple questions. I have done plenty of research since this first came out, and I've looked at it not just within Virginia or around Henrico, Chesterfield, and that sort of area, but looked at it nationwide and where it has worked and hasn't. And your data, in addition to what I found, is that it typically only is successful in areas with poor socioeconomics, in areas where, like you said before, the minorities, and in areas that really don't match Powhatan. So my question is, why are you looking at this for an area that doesn't match the areas where this has been successful? And then in addition to that, how are you going to work around the fact that students in the summertime tend to go to summer camps, whether it be educational, music, sports, whatever that happens to be, typically aligns from June to August because it's usually at colleges that are out for the summer. That's where they're housed when they go away to summer camps. By having year-round school, now with the balanced calendar, now you're looking at preventing children from getting additional education outside of the school district. And you're also preventing those students from working when they get to the high school level. A lot of those students require that money to either survive throughout the year for whatever they're paying for, pay for cars, to pay for their secondary education when they graduate. Businesses are not likely to hire students for 2 weeks every quarter and 5 weeks in the summer. The summer full-time is where a lot of the students make most of their money.
And I'm not going to tell you that we can predict what our businesses will or will not do and what opportunities. I mean, those are things, to me, families need to consider. When we look at the data, I think too that things are different. And with the data we look like, some of this data is national data and so on, but is that we're in a different spot than we were where much of this research was done. I think just where we are in public education, as far as the perceptions of public education, the perceptions of teachers, the wellness aspect of teachers and students, we're at a very different place. And, while the data, we wanted to pull out some positives and some negatives, how would it be here? I mean, I'm not going to say anything out there is going to be a template for what it would be here. It's things to consider, things to think about, things to discuss. But that's why we're doing this, because we want people to be able to ask questions, bring up concerns, so that this can be a community conversation about this.
Something else I noticed, one of your points from the study that you quoted was, teachers had the perception, and I don't know exact quote, so I may say this wrong. Teachers had the perception that the
Kids.
balanced school year had a correlation with better learning or something along those lines. Perception isn't reality, and correlation is not causation. So we need to be careful using those types of things from studies because it's not necessarily accurate.
It can be, but it also people's perceptions change their actions. And I think that's the intent of what the study was, but I hear you. Yes, sir.
So I'm fairly new. I have a kindergartner, so I'm new to the whole system. But I will say that we moved here because of the school district. I brought my family here because it's one of the best school districts in the area. That being said, how do we stack up SOLs? Because I'm a little new, so I don't know exactly how we're stacking up with surrounding areas with our SOL scores. But you did mention in the slide that areas with lower scores are where this is kind of focused to. So I'm just kind of wondering, where are we stacking up? Are we on the low end, or are we on the
No.
high end?
We're on the high end. We did a presentation that showed that in December, kind of, and I think one was November, that showed where we were relative to our like peers within the area.
Okay, sorry, I missed that one.
But it's online. I can get you connected to it.
So I guess all I can say is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm the owner of Warriors Way Martial Arts Institute. 21 years in the county. What I've compiled here, I'm going to read through for you. There are questions, but I'm not asking y'all to answer the questions right now. It's too many questions. This is more food for thought for all those watching online, anybody that's here. But before I begin, really quickly, a couple things I wrote down. When is you said there's another Q&A session?
There was one earlier today that we did for staff.
Okay, so like the questions that I have and the questions that my fellow county businesses have that we were sent that email, when do those get read to the public?
We're going to create an FAQ, and so we'll make sure those are on the FAQ.
Okay,
We'll compile that information and make sure that it's shared.
okay. And also, before I begin, so I'm representing, I would say, over the past year or 2 years, along with who we have now, well over probably 150 to 200 families in the county. We have a large summer camp program. We had, close to 120, 130 kids in our program every summer, not to mention our after-school program. I've spoken at length with some of the other daycare, if you will, or before and after school programs and summer camp programs. And you had stated earlier that you had reached out to us and that didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. It's a huge deal to us. So as a business owner, logistically, it is huge. So I don't want that to be misrepresented because it is. We've been here, I think, longer than anybody else in the county, and one of the largest programs for many, many years. And like I said, the other two owners that I talked to, just between the three of us, you're talking 400 or 500 kids every summer. So these are some questions that I wanted. Again, this is more food for thought. I got a copy I'll leave with y'all. And then I didn't have time. I'll attach this to the email as well that we got. I'm just going to read through it. Blended families. Have we considered blended families? Father lives in Chesterfield, mother's in Powhatan. Father gets his summers with the children. How is that going to work? Father's a school teacher in another county. How will that affect when he takes off time with his kids because the two schedules don't match? Teachers that don't live in the county, you talked about that, and have children that attend school in other counties. I don't know how many of those there are, but obviously they take their summers off with their children If they're going to be in school, their kids are out of school, that's going to cause a problem. Parent schedules with other parents, so in other words, in blended families, two parents having to work these schedules together, that could be greatly affected. Vacation coordination would be very difficult, and the options far less. I know earlier you'd said that the off-season vacations are more affordable. That's because nobody wants to go to those places in the off-season, let's be honest. The beach is cheaper in November for a reason. Parents to divide the summer into different camps for the children. I know that somebody just brought that up. So if you want to do, band camp for your, or not band camp, that's a school function, but if you want to do, a YMCA camp, and then you want a martial arts camp, and then you want a sports camp, now we're condensing it down into a much smaller time frame. Will those camps be available to those children? That's another concern. Will there be, what about the surrounding businesses or surrounding school businesses like Blessed Sacrament? Those children do our summer camps. We have a good amount of kids from Blessed Sacrament. If we're not there all summer, and we can't provide both, we can't do before and after school programs and summer camp programs, that just, cost-wise, it wouldn't be affordable for those kids. So are we considering that school as well? Summer camp children in this county make up a number of probably around 500 children, and that's got to be close to, for elementary age kids, I'm assuming close to a quarter of all the children in the county. I don't know, how many, do you know how many?
You're about
kids?
right.
Okay. All right, not to mention those parents that have full-time babysitters in the summer as well would be affected. Have we considered the effect on small businesses that run camps, which is what I kind of said before, and again, these are just my notes. Employees for summer camps are overwhelmingly college students. So for our summer camp programs that we run, I know you had spoke about the athletes. We have a lot of college students that come and work for us. A lot of families have college students that is a full-time babysitter all summer long. They won't be there in these off sessions, these 15 days, they won't be there for that. Let's see, summer camps for these businesses like mine also bring children from other counties. So we get kids from Cumberland, from Amelia, from Chesterfield. I know that's not our concern as Powhatan parents, but it's our concern as business owners and revenue, because now I don't have, let's say a dozen kids from 3 other counties because we don't have a summer camp that lasts the entire summer anymore. That's lost revenue for us, and that's a lot of revenue, believe it or not. Summer camps will now be spread throughout the year, which will greatly affect employment of athletes. I know that question was asked. And you said that Hopewell, I don't know how Hopewell does it, because I know that football starts in August, early August now. I know that band does. They're the only ones. We're still talking about June and July. My concern would be not just that the athletes, because we employ 99% of our employees are athletes and college students. So our high school athletes, they can't work a full day in these off weeks because they have to get to practice. So it's going to affect their employment greatly because they have to stop in the middle of their employment day and go to practices. Logistics, sorry everybody. Logistics and planning for 11 weeks spread throughout the year will be extremely difficult to say the least. Where will all the day camps go for field trips in the off season? No water parks, no swimming pools, no Powhatan State parks for classes with park rangers, no Maymont Park, no zoo, outdoor activities, and so on and so on. Field trip availability will be cut, in my estimation, about 75%. My summer camp, we do 4 to 5 field trips a week, every week, and we keep those kids out there. And I can say that, without a doubt, indoor field trips are 3 to 4 times as expensive as an outdoor field trip. An example would be like a trampoline park's $15 per child, lasts about an hour. Pool, $4 to $5 for a child, lasts all day. Parks, free. All cost of facility will be directly transferred to the parents, obviously, so our costs go up, parents' costs go up. Jumping back to student athletes real quick, when do they get a break? So they're going to school, they're doing their sports, and now in the 2 weeks that they have off, they still have to get to school to do their sports. When do they work their summer jobs? Obviously, we talked about that before. Let's see here. How athletes get to and from school for the sports. I mean, have we thought about that? You know, how are they gonna get here in the middle of the day? Who's gonna bring them? They'll still be competing, obviously, against other school districts, so they still have to train. Coaches will not have time off like their fellow teachers do, so if you're a coaching teacher, you're still gonna have to come in, so I don't know where their downtime and rest is gonna come from. And what is the benefit to a student athlete? They don't get the time off like all the other children due to practice schedules and games and tournaments. And I'm finishing up here. Working parents will still need daycare for their children. College-age babysitters won't be around. Student-athlete babysitters won't be around. And last but not least, our teachers. They will expect to wrap up the school year, restructure the classroom, clean up, order new supplies for a new year, among countless other things, in a 4-week or 6-week period, and then hit a big reset and come in with new students. I could see that as being a challenge. I know that you had said, I'm sure that there are teachers that are for and there are teachers against. I've probably spoken to 30 different people. I've not had any of the positives. Again, not all of this, if it seems negative, is from me. These are questions that need to be asked, and these are questions, 90% of this is questions that came to me. And then lastly, we'll lose a lot of good teachers. How do we replace them? I could go on. I am curious about the cost increase and where that's going to come from. I know that you said that, and lastly, I'll say, the school buses in the summer. Our bus has AC. You know, it's a 72-passenger bus, has a lot of kids on it. Powhatan's buses, some have AC, most don't. How does that look for us now, late July through August, driving these kids? It's not the driving that gets them, it's the sitting in the parking lot waiting to get off the bus. Or waiting to get off the bus in the mornings and then waiting while we're waiting at one school to pick up. We've already picked up from another school. So I'll submit this.
Thank you. Do we have any calls online either yet? Any questions? Then let's take a couple from there, if you will, Laura, and then we've got 2 here that are waiting. Just don't want to ignore our online folks either.
Absolutely. And I'll say for people at home, if you asked a question that I feel like has been answered, like talking about the sports programs, which is the first question, then we'll go to the next question because we have talked about it already. When you were talking in reference to the property values, did that data drop mean that the data saw drops in housing values in the areas that have gone with the balanced calendar, and it's possibly more costly, so county taxes will assumedly go up to cover the costs?
You know, I don't know that you can correlate the information directly to Powhatan, but that's things why we wanted there to be research out there so that people can look at it and compare. But, you know, I don't recall reading anything about increases in tax rates, but there was, you know, as I said, there was a correlation between people were willing to pay more to live in an area where there was not a balanced calendar.
How will this impact seniors for the 2026-2027 school year?
I mean, the school calendar would be the school calendar for that year.
Have the nearby counties who have tried and/or implemented this structure seen a positive impact on student performance? Is there data to support that this is actually a good thing for test scores? I'm going to do it all at once. If it's truly the community's choice, is there going to be a public vote? How else are we how else are we to have transparency in this process to show that the majority's wishes are actually being honored?
There'll be a survey that goes out, and people will be able to complete that. The results of that will be shared without being edited with our school board. And that can be, you know, we usually post those outcomes, I believe, online as well, so the public should be able to see what's there. You know, there's a lot involved. You know, I've heard questions about how do we get people to vote? I don't know how we get people to vote that don't engage. But we're working really hard to try to make sure that we're providing opportunities to engage not only our staff, but our families and the larger community. And hopefully that's seen, and people will trust that what we're asking them to do, please do it, and that the data is going to be shared without, we don't edit anything that we share with the board. So please consider what language you're using, I will say, as far as appropriate language. Let's use professional language in the feedback we provide, so that, when it is posted, it's something that our kids can read as well, because we know that our high schoolers will probably engage in this. We want to ask our students what they feel. Let's keep it clean. That would be the one thing I would ask.
And it's on me, I strung two things, I thought they were together, they weren't. The first part of it was, the other districts who have done this, have they seen positive results in data to show, like test scores, to show that this is worthwhile?
They have. We'll pull some data from the local area. I mean, they're available on the VDOE website, but you can see it. I will say that SOL data, while obviously it's important, it's what we're evaluated on by the VDOE, it's not the be-all, end-all. Every year, there's different kids that come through. They change the criteria of which we are assessed by, our schools are assessed by. So, we'll definitely pull out the data that is there, but no, you're at this point comparing apples to oranges, just because the VDOE has just completely flip how schools are being accredited.
We did have an internet interruption earlier when you were doing the intro to what a balanced calendar is, and at that time you made a point about why this came up in the first place. So there was a question about who brought this up, and what is the end goal for the suggestion of having a balanced calendar versus traditional calendar. So just briefly, could you touch on that?
Absolutely. The reason we're having this conversation is because our calendar committee asked for a balanced calendar to be an option for the 25-26 school year. And the amount of support that it had among the calendar committees, they get feedback from from others and bring it back to the calendar committee that Ms. Jarman oversees. And so that was one of the things that they wanted to do. And we said, we're sorry, a balanced calendar for 25-26 is not an option, because if this is what people, in our community wants, it will take longer than that to make people need you need runway for things to change. And you may remember, and I've heard that some people felt they didn't have enough runway when we went from the post-Labor Day to the pre-Labor Day start. So we're trying to give an 18-month runway if that's what the will of the people are.
And if you feel like this has been touched on enough, will it impact student athletes who attend college sports camps during summer? Will students be excused more days to attend the camps? And when the student athletes are on a break during active sports season, it may impact them getting to practices every day if their parents work.
That's a lot in one question, but what we have as excused absences will not change. The fact of what our coaches expect of our athletes are not going to change. I would say our varsity athletes, they have very limited out-of-season practice where they're not allowed, time period where they're not allowed to practice. Our students currently, I guarantee you, over winter break, our wrestlers were out, and probably our basketball players in some kind of tournament. In spring break, there will be a baseball tournament, or either here or our kids will go somewhere. I mean, those things already happen. I don't see that changing.
Where can I find a sample of the year-round schedule? I know they have it in the audience, but.
It'll be posted on, when we get the Q&A up, we'll post it on the website.
If you want, I'll ask one more and then we'll take a break.
Yes, that would be great. Then we can come back.
Again. Can you share why the schools in Chesterfield that participated in this are no longer doing the balanced schedule?
They do still do the balanced schedule, I believe, at one school. I can tell you it's very difficult.
I actually know Fire Creek Elementary School. My like it, did not want to do it. So they did it, but a lot of teachers left.
And I would say that a thing with, personally, I don't support the way that was done from the standpoint of they took elementary schools and made them year-round schools, but they didn't make the feeder school. And it's really difficult in large school divisions. You have so many schools, there are not clean feeder patterns. And that's the difference between us and Chesterfield, is it is a clean feeder pattern. All three of our elementary schools go into one middle school, go into one high school. And so when families also had kids in the elementary school on a balanced calendar and kids in middle and high school on a traditional calendar, then the number of days you're tied up is more than either the traditional or the balanced, that families have obligations. And I think that can make it hard on families. You know, that was one of the things I heard from some of the families, but I don't know that they've done any surveying with their families as to, you know, why decisions were made. I mean, I don't know.
Me again.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process, sorry.
It is.
I really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation and to get to hear other people's questions. My kids are older, and so it was helpful to hear some other people's questions. But one thing that kind of keeps coming back to me is this conversation of well-being for the teachers and just how hard it is to be in the school system right now in this time. And I really appreciate that you are willing to think outside of the box in an effort to give teachers just some wellness opportunities and some, opportunities to just be a better version of themselves in the classroom. My question is what other things are you looking at and in terms of wellness and well-being for teachers beyond just the calendar?
Well, we have some support systems in place that our HR routinely sends out to them, where we have counseling opportunities. That's an individual preference, but it's something that they have that we offer that they can access without charge. And then, also just, when you think about, you're always working on trying to make sure schools have a positive culture, because the more positive the school environment is, the more likely both students and staff are going to be, happier. But right now, I will say that, we're having a lot of teachers come in that did not go to school to be teachers. And so as we're trying to work with them and help them be a really good teacher and feel good about what they're doing, we've offered, you'll see in the calendar for next year, that one of the things that, our teachers told us was having that break where there was a kind of a holiday and a work day, and it created a 4-day weekend. That break was amazing to them. And I know a lot of people maybe don't know what teachers do, but really good teachers work really long hours. It is not just the school day. It's not just even when they go home from school. Good teachers will go home, put their own kids to bed, and either still be lesson planning or grading. It's a lot. And so those are things that they've told us as they're working, because I will say some of our children are coming with more behavior issues. And so what they need to be able to cope with that too. That's one of the things they've said. So we added 3 4-day week, three additional days, so that it would create a 4-day weekend in the 25-26 calendar. So we're looking at different ways to try to help them, and we know that one of the things that doesn't help either is if I'm here today, but my colleague isn't, and now I need to teach their classes, that's creating more of a burden on those that are at school that day. And so how do we find ways that we chunk things in a way that makes it maybe people can survive through that, thrive through that time, and then be able to have that, the off time to come back and say that I'm ready to go. You know, I've heard nothing but good things about today after a 3-week break, although not intended, but, you know, a 3-week break. And they feel rested.
Thank you.
Hi, my concern that I have not heard anyone here address is how you're going to deal with families who have custody orders. For example, courts implement custody orders in the best interest of the children, as one of the school board members mentioned. And extending to a year-round calendar could potentially limit a child's ability to be with a non-custodial parent. Because if that parent lives in Florida and is supposed to spend their summer with their father or their mother, if the child is here and is expected to go to school all of that time, that's 6 weeks' time in the summer, as opposed to the 3-month time in the summer, is robbing the child and the parent of that custodial parent time. That's very important. And that's in the best interest of the children. So if you change your calendar, you're going to have a lot of kids, because the divorce rate for first marriages in the United States right now is 43%. So you have to think that, and it's higher for second and third marriages. So at least, and it's also, as of 2022, is higher in Virginia than the national average. So let's say between 43 and 50% of your families in Powhatan are divorced. So let's say that some of those have children. That's not a small slice. That is a slice that could rival the other concerns, like the socioeconomic concerns, et cetera. And those families are going to have to either sacrifice time with a non-custodial parent, move out of the county, or some other option, which then requires more guardian ad litem to come and get involved to try to parse out what these families are looking like in terms of what they're spending with their children. It's not just the additional cost of year-round school for the school itself. It's for the taxpayers in the county, but it's also for those individual families that not only have to figure out what is our child custody going to look like now, but we have to go back to court and get new orders.
I was going to
Which
say,
means-
I know this same thing happened when it went from the post-Labor Day to the pre-Labor Day. I mean,
Yes,
was
it
this-
did.
You know, I mean, I know there were families that, probably lots of families that dealt with it, but contentious divorces required going back to court.
And
That's true.
it's a huge ordeal that involves a lot of time, a lot of angst for not just the parents, but also the children. They don't know whether they're going to spend time with their mother or their father, or who lives here, who doesn't. I like the if it's not broke, don't fix it, but I am also completely supportive of innovation. I just don't think this is the one, because your presentation, which I appreciated very much, it answered several of my questions, but just a quick Google on the way over here actually showed me things where you had as positives and actually had them as negatives. One of the ones was burnout, that students are actually can be more inclined to be burned out when they go to school all year. And I will tell you, my children have been in Powhatan schools since kindergarten. And I have a senior right now who, when she found out I was coming here, was obviously pleased that she wasn't facing this kind of concern. She didn't care that her younger brother is. But, so you've got the cost of the families, you've got the burnout. I will tell you that both of my children have to work so that they can have their car or prepare for college. And so it's a broader effect than I think is being raised in just the presentation. I don't want to call the presentation myopic, because I understand that as superintendent, your job is to focus on the kids in the schools. But I think if you're going to address this kind of issue and talk about it, you've got to look at all of the things, like the student athletes and the businesses that are involved in this county. And, the summer opportunities that are not Powhatan related, school system related. You know, several of the kids have gone to college things over the summer to test out which college they want to go to. That would be an opportunity they'd be robbed of. And for kids who are not going to college, they need to work, or they need that experience. And one point I was really interested in is your presentation said that the school is being held responsible for things that happen and learning outside of the school. And I didn't understand, what's the measure of that, and how does that translate? What was the data behind that statement?
It's kids who are behind and don't get additional help. You know, we're judged on that full year when you consider year to year. So if children don't have learning opportunities or don't take advantage of learning opportunities, that has an impact on their performance, which impacts schools. It does. It doesn't mean that, you know, you could say the system's broken, but it's how the system works. And so we play by the rules of the game. But, you know, there are, and you ask, this is why we are doing this, so that people can bring up things that are that are maybe more personal to themselves, their families, that have a different perspective. Their job brings them a different perspective. We need to be talking about these things so in a way that people feel like possibilities have been explored, and is this possibility, something we want to bring to fruition or something that we don't? I mean, that is exactly why we're doing this. So I hope our families and our community feels like this is an opportunity. They have an opportunity to be online and ask questions. And if we don't get to questions, we're still going to create the FAQ, and those questions will be answered in there. And so, if someone feels we're not being transparent, I will be disappointed, because I feel like not only is the staff really feel it's important to be transparent, but our board feels it's important to be transparent. And like I say, they're invested. They're here tonight. They wanted to hear firsthand of what you all were saying and what the concerns are, because it's not being translated for them into an FAQ. They're hearing it firsthand. So I hope that level of commitment tells our community we do want to hear what they want. All of them.
So I have a couple more thoughts, and then I'll yield. You've mentioned a reference to Hopewell many times. I will just point out that I've worked in Hopewell and I live in Powhatan. They are very night and day situations.
They are.
And I don't think that it's even an apples and oranges comparison. I think it's an apples and squash comparison. You just can't.
It's a feeder pattern thing where you can talk about things that haven't worked in Chesterfield but have worked well in Hopewell. There are reasons why it works better in Hopewell. And I realize demographically, we cannot compare ourselves to Hopewell at all.
Just
But
in our SOL
we were
scores
just
alone.
talking about within the region, and those are the only two examples we have within our region. And Hopewell is in our region when we think of superintendent's regions. It isn't, they are in our region.
When you mentioned engagement, I believe there is a way for engagement, and I'd like to offer it. Before this school year, I had to apply for both of my children to ride the school bus for the first time since ever they were in school. And that certainly was a way to reach out to every single parent in this county, is to ask whether your child is going to ride the bus. It may not penetrate the high school as much because there are lots of drivers there. But I have in past years, once that I can recall, other than the school bus application, received a survey about asking what my thoughts were. And so there are at least two opportunities to reach people, and the survey to all the parents with emails is one of them. And the other one is just how you reached people about the busing. The other thing that I'd like to point out to you is those families going through custody battles, they don't have time to be engaged in anything dealing with their kids and their life.
Thank you. I do understand. I've worked with some families.
So I have 4 kids that have come through the Powhatan County school system, one who's graduated, a junior, a freshman, and a 7th grader. And they're all athletes, so I, of course, got the athlete concern, so I won't talk about that. I will say, though, that one thing no one has mentioned is, yes, it won't change as far as sports are still year-round, and I'm sure the coaches will make some concessions for that, but a lot of those students need rides to school then during those breaks when their parents are at work. And that's probably near impossible for a lot of them. You know, there's only so many kids that have their licenses and even a car to get themselves there. The other 2 things I wanted to bring up, one that I haven't heard brought up yet is, I was on the committee for the calendar back when they changed it to before Labor Day. And the big thing that people fought for with that was that it lined up with the ACA schedule, which this then is going to go away from that.
The ACA schedule they have it so it's fluid now, so they would work the time around what our schedule was.
Okay.
So we do know that is not,
Okay.
should not be a concern.
Right. And
Should just
but
be
to
a-
piggyback on that, like I asked my junior, I asked my kids what they thought about this, and my junior was concerned that with a class like AP Chemistry, that having these big gaps in between work was going to impact her flow and her how to keep up on the work, so that when she takes the AP exam at the end, she's had these big gaps where she wasn't in school working on her chemistry. I'm sure you could say that you should study at home, but it's a lot different when you're in the classroom with the teacher applying what you're learning.
And there's probably some AP kids that would absolutely love to have more time to do their reading because it's so labor intensive on the reading side. And
Right. I think it depends on the
depends on the
class.
child, it depends on
Yeah.
the class, it depends on what their course load is.
Right.
I
But
mean,
I just
some
think
kids-
it's worth mentioning that that's another thing to think about. Especially also, my third thing was with daycares. I have thought about people like Warriors Way. I think that's a huge impact to consider. But also, lower income families that don't have, both parents are working or it's a single parent at home that can't afford daycare for 2 weeks here and there throughout the year. And maybe they have a different system in the summer where they have a teacher friend that keeps their kid. I have a lot of friends who stay with a teacher, their kids stay with a teacher for the summer. So it's another thing to consider.
Yeah, I know the amount of time kids are off doesn't change. It's the
Right.
same number of days. I will tell you, we've tried to talk through some things as staff. Not that we don't know what the answers will be for our families, but as we talk through it, we're like, it might be easier to get a family member to take kids for a week or 2 here and there than a summer. We don't know the answer, each family will be different in what that means to them. So again, that's why we do hope people will respond when we're asking for their input. I will also say, on the athletic side, however the kids get to school the first 2 weeks of August, their school's not in session then either, but they managed to make it for fall sports.
Well, yeah,
There's some way.
high school is a little bit different. I know coaches that'll actually come and pick
True.
the kids
I'm
up.
talking varsity
But middle
sports.
school, that's huge because, these kids have to get out to
Yeah,
it's a lot different.
absolutely. Middle school is very different, and and we have that on our questions to ask about the league we're in. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for taking all of our comments and questions. Perhaps some of mine are just comments, things to think about.
but I am going to start with just a couple of very specific questions. I had never heard of the calendar committee till this last year when I saw something that said, hey, does anybody want to be on it? I did not go for it, but I'm curious, how many people are on the calendar committee?
She'll pull it up if you want to look at the calendar committee has been, as an entity, not the same people, but as an entity, has been around for as long as I am aware. I know Dr. Alejandro used to run it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's like 5, if it's 10, if it's like 20. 15 or 20. Gotcha. So like 15 or 20 people have thought about this and brought it up. 20 people. 21. All right. 21 people have thought about this, and then they've reached out to some friends. Okay, so like
Their colleagues in their buildings.
their colleagues in their buildings, so like maybe 5 or 10 more people for each of those. So about 200 people and some parents.
I was on it last year. I literally asked every single person in my school what they wanted us to talk about, what was important to them, and no, it's not you just talking to a few friends. If you're really asked to be on it, you ask everybody. So we had a lot of people. I mean, we started talking about this last year. There was a lot of people. So we had community people in it too. And then also from being on the PTO and stuff, it's all people that they hear from. So it's not just a few people.
Yeah.
Sorry for saying it.
Yeah, I still think that it's an interesting group of people that have initiated something and then have spawned out with some ideas. And then we're talking about something that's going to actually impact not only the students and not only the parents and not only the small businesses, the local businesses, but all of Powhatan. I mean, everything that goes on in this very small community really does impact everyone. I'm just going to point that out. So it sounds like it had some support. So it must have had some wings. I don't see that same support here, but at the same time, you're just trying to gather information so that we can all kind of have our ideas, rhetorical, put out there. I'm curious, that small community of people that did come up with those ideas, what were they trying to solve? I have not heard yet what the why is. In Hopewell, they had a why, and the study showed what it did for them. In Chesterfield, they thought they had a why, and then that seemed to not solve for them. And I'll just say those two because those are from Virginia. Other areas that have done this, and they've done it all in many different manners. I mean, not just the 15, 30.
There's all kinds of
Yeah,
models.
there's so many different ways to do it. And so many different ways to do it, even tracks-wise, whether it's a single track or a multi-track and whatnot. Obviously, we don't even have a capability of a multi-track out here. I have no clue how that would happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's the why? Other communities have had an actual why. I don't know what that why is for Powhatan, okay? So I'm just putting something out there rhetorically, but I'm hoping that you are putting that into that information, that FAQ that's out there. Let's think about what the why is.
And I'll share, because I'll share it again, it's about the wellness of our staff and our students. It really is, because if they are mentally where they need to be every day that they're in the building, our teachers are going to be happy, the retention's going to be there, our kids are going to be happy, they're going to be learning, and those are all positive outcomes.
So for Dr. Beth Teigen, it's for the students
Well,
and the teachers, which is great. The community needs to consider, well, are the students and the teachers having a difficult time with a general, normal 180-day from, summer to May type of approach, or does it need to be changed? So again, it's just the rhetorical out there. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to skip that one. I hope that in the FAQs, you guys are able to put together some semblance of what is it going to cost Powhatan to do this. Obviously, there's going to be, you know, AC and heat and maintenance and repairs and buses and whatnot. But then, of course, there's also teachers and salaries, and do things change, and do we need more? Do we need a different approach with the buses? So are there more bus drivers? You know, all those different things I'm hoping, and all this other stuff that I have no clue about, yeah. I'm hoping that you're able to come up with some sort of idea of how much it might cost Powhatan to make this change, and then again, for us to reflect on whether it's answering that why question. Is it going to solve for that? I'm interested to hear, again, probably in the FAQs, how are situations like a weather-related issue? I know that that never happens out here, but how is that going to, you know, impact if it's on the last week of that cycle, and then what happens? They're gone for those 2 weeks, and, you know, whatever. So I'm hoping that we have some idea of, hey, when something like this crazy weather that we just had happens, this is what's going to take place, or this is what we might be able to do. You might have to change it on a whim because things change, but, you know, some idea of weather-related issues. You mentioned intervention and being able to help those at-risk students that need that extra help, and you had said something about at least one of those weeks during this break. So you were thinking of having kind of like a mini summer school during each of those little breaks. Is that what I had understood?
Right, it's catching them up more in real time instead of waiting till the summer and doing a 3-week, 4 weeks, you know, summer school. Do it throughout the year.
Gotcha. So something to put into that FAQ, but also consider if there are different situations that come up during those little mini breaks, like other weather issues, or I guess if there's holidays during that time, really what's the idea, or whatever. You know, we've talked about the summertime being a time for kids to make their money, hopefully be able to utilize it for college and whatnot. Teachers do the same thing. They do try to subsidize because, you know, they don't make as much as they might like to, and they certainly can use their time wisely. When they no longer have a 10-week time period that they can go and have a solid place to go to, and they only have a 2-week break and a 3-week break and whatnot, it's harder to find those type of jobs that will actually hire them for that kind of going back and forth type of approach. So keep that in mind as well, please, community, when we're making some decisions on all this. I'm interested to understand how we're considering this could impact things as Powhatan grows. Powhatan growing is a large comment in the community these days as well, with possibilities happening or hopefully not happening. But in any case, it's still going to grow no matter what. And some of us are already talking about, hey, we're going to be needing, you know, these schools are bursting. We're going to be needing either more schools or a new approach or whatnot. How is this going to impact that if we have a unique approach to a school year? And I think my last stuff that I wanted to ask is a little bit more question related. This survey that you're sending out, I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the FAQs hopefully beforehand or maybe at the same time, so we can have some really good understanding of what we're making comments on and giving feedback on. When do you think that any FAQs might be going out there, and then when do we think that any surveys would be sent? And I would like to also understand who all is this survey going out to? You mentioned 4 groups, but I didn't write fast enough.
Well, first of all, we're hoping by Monday that we can get the FAQ up and hopefully have the survey ready to go. I mean, the basic pieces of it are ready. But it's the launching of it that can take a little bit more time, because one of the things we don't want is people voting 10 times for one thing. So we want it to be something that will allow us to capture information and so on. And so we specifically from our teachers, we have information. From our parents, we have information. And then we've got to figure out how we're doing that with community students. We have access to them as well. So, we can get to them through their school email as far as for the level of kids we want to ask what their feedback is.
So I heard students, I heard teachers, and then who else would it be going out to?
Families and community.
And who is community? I think that's the one that I really wanted to focus on and understand who is community.
That's other people like business, some of the business, the business owners, the people who, they could also be retirees, live here and don't have children anymore, or still working and have never had children, either in Powhatan County Public Schools or, but it's the greater community. It is Powhatan.
Got it.
That voice.
Got it. So it's not necessarily something that's going out, it's more like, hey, this is accessible to you.
Yes.
Please fill out. And again, you haven't finalized, but that
Right.
might be the idea.
But that's, the goal is, and we know that not everyone will participate, but
Yeah,
the goal is to try to get information out there so that they know it's out there and that if they want to take the initiative to provide feedback, that they do that.
right.
And that's for all 4 of those groups.
Right. So I hope if any of the board members, school board members are still here, that maybe they'll be
They're all still here.
great, finding a way to make sure their constituents have their voice made. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, great.
So, thank you for today. My name is Joe Parker. I'm the owner of Fast Feet Sports Academy. So I have a few things, not going to get through. Mr. Lanzalotti spoke really well, covered a lot of things. I'm not being positive or negative yet. I'm kind of on my analytical and collecting phase, but I don't like not knowing, and I have a lot of parents that are asking me, and I hate saying I don't know, so here I am. But wrong glasses. So they're asking for proper information. So tonight you're given a lot, and I do appreciate that, so I'm going to take this back. But as far as where you're saying some people are not going to respond to the survey, human nature, I'll help. When it sends to me, I will send it to all our parents. I'll hit it on all our posts so we can get some proper information. But just a few minor points, where you were talking about daycares, not having a problem with it. A true daycare under state law is allowed to have an infant that is 4 to 1. By law, I am not a daycare. I'm inspected, licensed by, very inspected by a state and licensed. We're allowed to have 18 to 1. That'll never, ever happen, ever. We are 10 to 1 or less, and only my senior coaches and myself will get 10. So there is a differentiation because an infant's not going to go somewhere. We have lessons of the day. We're extremely strict on manners, respect, the pledge, that type of thing. And we're really, really active. 4 or 5 trips a day, 20+ games a day. So where we're getting affected is the infants. It doesn't affect an infant and children, as they're not going to go anywhere. But we've got to figure this out. I just wanted to clear that part up. Mr. Lanzalotti runs into it. Some Firefly runs into that. You have a real mixed bag, and parents truly are asking us, what are you going to do? Here's that answer I don't like. I don't know. So we're really collecting on it. But a point where we're so supportive of the county. I have 8, and I'm not even count my daughter. She'll make 9. I have 8 college students, and referencing my daughter, she's older, she's a junior, she has her apartment, and we're figuring out, I'm working on all the finances and trying to train her in all of this. Well, she comes in, she's like, Dad, well, at work it has to be Coach Joe, but Dad, can I get at least 45 hours? And she's a great coach, and sometimes she'll want to get more, and she's saving and we're budgeting. So now I have to unemploy my daughter because it's not worth her coming to me or to someone, hey, we only have a 6-week summer. Well, that's not going to cover food. It's not going to cover your power and your water. So we have 8 students, and I have never yet, ever, in the 7 years we've been here, employed anyone, even as a junior coach. I have a new program where you have to be 15 and a half, and we take one a year so that I can put you with a senior coach. I have to let go of 8 Powhatan college students. And so now I'm unemploying people that came through our school system and they live here. And a few of them want to live here. Now, here's another one. I won't say his name yet. A bunch of them know him. I have another coach. He's one of my full-time employees. I've trained him. It's my program, and he's doing amazing on the homeschool program that we had. If we have kids there, we can't blend them with the homeschool program. But he's using his money to do, he went CNU scholarship, he went to Regent, played soccer there. He's from Powhatan, and he's doing his master's online with, he has to go twice a month. He's paying for that by working 40-plus hours for us because he wants no debt on the master. He has his regular college loan. So he's like, hey, I'm going to pay for this. So now I have to let him go because if I have to reduce my homeschool program and the summer camp where he does overtime, he's 24, he's 23. Now I'm letting him down to not finish his degree, and he's actually considering changing his degree to go into child mentoring / coaching because we're not a daycare. He's actually concerned. He's amazing. What do I do with him? I'm not good at letting people down I give my word to, but now I'm facing 9 people right off the top. These are just food for thought. I'm really trying to work it out. I mean, I'm truly not positive, negative, kind of neutral, a little bit numb, surprised, but just wanted to say that. Then there's another aspect. When the kids are in school, I train college-bound players. I'm a speed and soccer coach. I have a whole wall of college players all over the country that have come from Powhatan, Chesterfield, some of them Chesterfield, and other elite, like soccer players and stuff. But the speed is everyone. I mean, I have high school students, they get out early and will come in. I'm helping them with, just say, a core stability so they can go on to get scholarships. I now got to let you go. And my rates are lower than anybody for any athlete that comes out of Powhatan. So we lose that. And prior to COVID, I was your technical coach for the high school soccer team. So I'm taking that and giving that back to the kids and helping with the ADP program. We're going to lose those things with this mixed calendar. But now we've got another tone, and a parent really, your slide about perception earlier, that word stood out. Some of our parents have the perception that this is a done deal.
It is not.
And that's why I came tonight, because I said, hey, I don't think so. I don't know. And I'm familiar with the Chesterfield and the Hopewell from my prior career with what they went on, and this isn't the place to get into some of the failures there and why it went that way. But the perception is tonight, I can go back tomorrow, because they're going to ask, hey, no, they're really working on it. We're going to have a Q&A. That's why I'm saying I'll help you send out that survey to make sure, hey, fill this out. They're listening. But that perception is out there a little, and I'd like to negate that for you. And with your FAQ, the open door policy, I think, is going to help a lot. But the weird thing about perception, so one person's perception is their reality. That's hard for us to beat. So that's kind of, I want you to know some of that's out, and you're always going to have that, but some of it is, and that's why I'm here today. So I do appreciate this time tonight. Thank you for that. You're going to give me more answers, so tomorrow when inevitably some of them come in, my phone's already going, I don't have to say that phrase I don't like of, I don't know. Let me see. Another question came up. Is this format, has there been any other considerations for, say, an 8-week summer or another block of time where this is the way it would be? This 6 weeks off and then the 45 on.
This is what we've focused on as far as we felt was the best option. That doesn't mean, if the feedback was that a different timing.
Mm-hmm.
But, the problem is the longer you make the summer too, the greater the summer slide for students. But, and I will say we are most concerned about the academic ability of our students when they leave us, whether it's to go to college, to go to, into a career or go into a service. I mean, we want them to be successful in their steps that they take outside when they leave us as a senior.
And as far as like your upper classes and everything, my daughter's name is Lena. I asked her, I said, I don't want you to answer this question to me as far as fast feet. Forget about fast feet. I want you to go as she's a coaching liaison now. She works with every college that comes in for soccer for Shenandoah. So she's really exposed to a lot of coaches, players, and everything. And she has physics and microbiology. And her point was, which is similar to the other lady who said about the AP class, she said, Dad, I wouldn't want a break when I'm going through my physics and my physics lab. And I didn't even think about it. It was a great thing for her to say. She's doing a J term. It's a 3-week blast while she's off on winter break for her physics. She's already passed, but she wants to up that because she says it's going to prepare her for physics, whatever that next title is, that she's going back to when they return to school. So she's taking this thing. And she said, if this is going on with a high school, because we have high school students taking college-bound classes, and some of them walking out with an associate's. She said, Dad, that's going to be hard for them to have that break, especially if they're prepping for the next step. So that was just food for thought for it. Thank you. I'll be in touch and watching, but thank you for your time.
In regards to the sports, you know, we had a lot of people ask about sports. I'm a varsity mom, football mom. He has played since he was a freshman in high school. I will tell you, the commitment is no joke. So for those parents who may have rising high schoolers who are considering it, and if you're going to go, you're worrying about how it's going to fit in, I can tell you from June 3rd, last year, we were 3 days a week, 7 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. I'm a single mom. I have an amazing job that luckily I ran him there, ran him back. I had an aunt who could help when needed. First week of August, then we were looking at 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you might run into an issue where a lot of parents are going to have issues with that. So maybe another food for thought for you to keep it on there. I come from a area that we had after-school buses. We had sports buses. I know that's not something here, but maybe that's something you're all going to need to look into then to kind of cover, where they get the kids. I know it's probably impossible in this county with how spread out we are, but maybe it's something that you're going to have to look into if that's something you want to do. So.
I'm going to get back to some of the online questions. I will say there are some comments in here, just because it's already been 90 minutes. And
I was gonna say, can we hold the comments?
Yeah, so I
we'll
was gonna,
add them?
I was just gonna let people at home know that I have written down your comments, and I will pass those on to the staff, to the board, but we're gonna focus on the questions. It seems we're making a lot of comparisons to Hopewell. How long has the city of Hopewell implemented this type of school year?
I think they're going into their 4th year, maybe? It was in COVID that they were already in, so it may be going 4th or 5th year. I think 4th.
Someone asked if the school admins who do not live in Powhatan will be transferring their students to Powhatan.
If who?
If the school admins who do not live in Powhatan will be transferring their students to.
I can't answer for them. I can't answer for other people.
We are strongly considering moving to Powhatan, but this would likely be a showstopper for us. Is there a way for non-residents to participate in the survey?
I think that's really hard. You've either made the commitment or, I'm not going to say that non-residents, because that it takes it that we don't know who's voting, and this is something that is for our community. And I don't know that one vote either way is going to make a difference in the big picture of things.
If we cannot draw conclusions from surrounding areas as they don't align with Powhatan demographics and scores, why are we using that data to support this proposal?
We're just using it to provide information that is available within the region here, as to show what some of the positives are and what some of the drawbacks are. I mean, we tried to be balanced in how we presented our balanced calendar. It truly is not a sale. I hope people realize it's not a sales job. We're trying to make sure our community's questions and our staff questions can be answered, in a very public way. So, when the FAQ is out there, people will see all the questions, all the responses. If they've missed it, then they have an opportunity to at least capture what the meat of it was that I think that the people who were attended today, whether it was with our staff the first session or with the evening session here for staff, families, community, hopefully that is apparent to them.
How will the new calendar impact students in AP courses which have test dates and other things mandated by the College Board?
We need to verify something before we give an answer to that, so that'll be in the FAQ.
Would there be support systems in place for children who struggle with transitions given the regular breaks every 45 days in a balanced school year?
There's supports that are given now when we come back from breaks, that's something that's already happens for our kids who need it. So I don't suspect that would change.
If this gets implemented, what do we do if this schedule isn't working / how many years of scores do we take into consideration to determine if this new schedule is beneficial or not?
Well, that hasn't been discussed, so that's something that I don't know the answer to that, and it's hard to answer for things in the future that you may or may not have control over. As far as, I look at it, this is still another year out. It's 2 years out. We know that there will be elections, so we can't answer for other people. No one can.
Kind of question, have you asked the staff what would benefit their mental health and students more, a balanced calendar or smaller class sizes, better behavior management, and less meetings?
A loaded question, but we are going to ask our staff whether this is, how they feel about this. Smaller class sizes are probably not likely. We have the smallest class sizes, I think, of any locality, and that is one of one of our truly positive things we have here, not only for staff, but to me, for students.
That was, there's statements, and again, I will share those
Yeah, well,
in writing.
absolutely, we want to read those, and see we have one more. I think this will be our final question tonight.
I hate to do it, sorry. Just for clarity, does the school system receive any sort of a grant if you go to a balanced school system?
No,
Okay.
that was easy.
Simply allocated funds.
Nope, that's misinformation, because one, we don't qualify. There are planning grants for year-round schools. We would not apply because we know we don't qualify. So no, there's no benefit for us to do this, other than the benefit that we feel is for our staff and our students. So that was an easy question. Thank you for the.
It just seems like it's being pushed, so
Yeah. So, other localities, I'm sure, probably did that, but no, we are not. Where there's no financial incentive. This is what we trying to offer. This is something the Calendar Committee brought forward of what they truly believed would help staff and students. Now we put it where it is, we share it, and we get feedback.
I'm sorry, according to the Department of Education Virginia website, it indicates that there's an appropriation act that gives funding for schools looking at 10, 11, and 12-month calendars. But from what I understand from you, Palatine is not applying for those.
Correct, we're not eligible. We wouldn't be eligible if we wanted to apply.
Why not?
Because there's a level of poverty level usually that's required. And we would not meet that threshold.
Because we don't have a high enough poverty level?
Correct. Which again, kind of some of the responses about why people do it, that's been historically there are other benefits of year-round schools that if people,
We don't have the SOL scores that would warrant it. So I'm just confused as to how it's gonna help the kids.
Can I say something?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was on the committee last year, not this past year, the year before last. It was brought up then, and, I am a school teacher, and the thing that we kept coming back to was when we went back to school at the beginning of the next school year, having to reteach, like for the first 4 or 5 weeks, reteaching what they had learned, because it's like, they call it the summer slide, and it really is, and we wouldn't have that going on, and you could get going with your things, and that's really what brought it up every year, is the concern of the number of children that when they go to summer break, there are lots of parents and families that keep reading with their children, keep doing things. There are lots that do not look at anything.
But it doesn't matter. How long does it take for kids to get back to routine after that huge break?
That's what I'm saying, about 4 or 5 weeks after the summer break, it really is reteaching. And it was like, if we don't have those big long breaks, or we have these smaller breaks that they're learning, that, okay, we're coming back in. I mean, I found today with my grade, I went right to my routine, and I said, okay, you guys, let's see if you can get this. And not all teachers, it depends on teachers and everything, what they're doing, but sometimes there is, you can tell, some children probably didn't get read to the whole time, and others, they were going because they had it going on. So we're trying to help the ones that need the help the most. And it might not be any of your children, because no, I'm saying.
But reading to their children, they're still not gonna read to their children. Just like if
Well,
you have a summer school that's
at this point, we're gonna close down the meeting. We're happy to take other questions. We'll give you the email address that you can submit them, so they're in writing, that we can address. But I just want to thank you all for coming tonight and engaging in the conversation. Please, do your research, check things. And again, you're going to vote, when that survey comes to you, you're going to respond with what it means to you as far as what's in the best interest of you and your family. Every family will do that. We'll come back and we'll see, we'll share those results. And so hopefully you'll be there to hear those results as well. So thank you so much and have a good evening. And thank you for your patience over the last week as we waited for roads to get cleared.